Little House on the Prairie. Laura, Mary, Charles, Carolyn, Mr. Hanson, Mr. and Mrs. Olson, Mr. Edwards, Reverend Alden, Esther Sue, and so many others that I grew up with back in the late 70s, early 80s. I used to wait until 5 p.m. just to watch that show on Channel 11. About 3 years ago, I came across one of the episodes from Little House, and after I watched it, that passion that I had for it back in my childhood years just lit up within me, and that is what inspired me to purchase all 9 seasons in digital format from Amazon Prime, from Amazon Video. So, yes, 3 years ago I began watching Little House all over again. And I didn't know it was 9 seasons. And I watched it. And right now I'm currently watching all of those. I'm watching all of those seasons again for the third time. And I've been wanting to make a video about my thoughts and feelings about this show because this is my number one favorite show of all time. Why is that? Why is this so personal for me? It's because when I watch this show, I don't think of it as a show. I think of it as an experience. It's a form of escapism. Whenever I take the time to watch this show, I know I keep saying show, but it's not a show to me. I feel like I'm there. I feel like I'm in that time period. When I'm watching it, the surroundings around me don't exist at all. What's happening during that experience is me being there, right next to Charles, right next to whoever that I'm looking at. And it just takes me away from whatever issues that I'm dealing with, whatever it is that's happening in my life in 2020. When I see this show, I'm there. And whenever one of the characters, right? Like for example, if when Charles ends up in a fight or in an argument, or when he is just simply having a conversation with someone, I feel like I'm there. It's I'm trying my best to describe, you know, how I feel about this. I feel like it's like I'm in his skin, so to speak, you know. And when he cries, I within me, the sorrow just begins to descend within me. Yes, that's how serious I take this show, and it means that much to me, guys. For the longest time, I've been wanting to make a video about Little House, but I just felt that it was bigger than life. These were the same exact thoughts that I had about the book of Matthew, chapter 24. If you check out that video, you're going to notice as you watch that video the fact that I said the same things that I'm saying now. You know, I'm the type of person that when I experience something that is just so big to me, that right there can intimidate me. It could actually caused me to just turn away and then say to myself, nah, I don't think that I'm in a position to talk about this. And that being said, I was praying to the Lord and this morning, and the Lord said in His way to me during our conversation, it's time. It's time for you to talk about this show that I placed my hand on, because I do feel that the Lord's hand, His fingerprints, were all over this show. Many will walk away from this show thinking that it's just a family show, and I respect that. I have seen several videos by others on YouTube who talked about their feelings about the show, and most of them have come to that same conclusion. They think of it as just a very good, positive family show. And I get that. But I don't think of it as just a family show. It is bigger than that. The hand of the Lord His hand was placed on that show throughout all of the seasons. And this is what's missing right now, you see. Shows like this. Shows like this don't exist anymore. Shows like the Andy Griffin Show, which is a show that I started to watch recently, which is quite humorous, but I like certain aspects of that show. And Little House. You don't see shows like this anymore because they're not popular. They are not in demand, you see. Happy Days, Laverne and Shirley, Little House. Those shows were, and I thank God for this, they were designed for that time. Right now, with the things that are happening, which is something I don't want to get in. I really don't want to get into that. But what I'm saying is that Little House was for that time, and I wish that shows like that were made for this time, because I believe that many people need shows like this in their lives right now. So let me go back to what I was just saying. I want to continue to spill my heart, my guts, all over this video about this show, my favorite show of all time. There are so many episodes. If I try to go into detail about each and every episode, this video will be hours long. It will be... So in the future, what I'm going to do, I'm going to make videos, right? What I'm saying is that in the future, I'm going to take an episode from Little House, and I'm going to just focus all of my attention upon that video, based upon that video, based upon that episode. Because if I try to do that here, it's not gonna be possible. So I just want to continue sharing with you guys how I feel about this show. It's funny. There's this show made by Michael Landon. He did not shy away from the things that took place during that time. During the mid 1800s, this is what this show was based upon, right after the Civil War. This show was not designed like the Brady Bunch, you see. Michael Landon did not move away from the things that were happening during that time. There was racism. There was, these differences of opinion about the Indians. Michael Landon addressed that. Michael Landon addressed the reality of evil within people. That's why numerous episodes consist of villains who happened to end up in Walnut Grove with bad intentions. And Michael Landon added that reality to his show, and I'm so glad that he did that. And there was this one episode called The Wisdom of Solomon. I'm going to touch on that a little bit. Todd Bridges from Different Strokes was in the show. He was a kid at the time. He played as Solomon. And he ran away from home because he was tired of growing up as an average black person. So he ended up in Walnut Grove, and to make a long story short, because I don't want to, I don't want to go too deep into that episode, but there was this one scene that I need to bring up. When Todd Bridges was in Charles' barn, and he was reciting a poem based upon heaven. Right after he recited that beautiful poem, Carolyn was also present, and she said to Charles, "I wish that I can keep him forever in our family." But ultimately, Todd Bridges' character realized that he can no longer remain with them due to the racism that was going on in the world at that time. He felt that it was imperative to return to his family, which was a very touching ending, but it was a very realistic ending, you know. And in closing, I see that it's about 12 minutes so far in this video. Oh man, I could say so many things about this show. Dr. Baker. It's funny how when something goes wrong, right? This show could be quite funny too. Usually if something happens, if someone gets hurt or someone is sick or whatever, someone in the show will say, "Oh, got to get Dr. Baker, So, and he's always available. That's the funny thing too. That's the funny thing. And Mr. and Mrs. Olsen, they were the regular villain. Not they, forgive me. Mrs. Olsen, Harriet, she was the regular villain in the show. And I checked out one of her interviews on YouTube, and she was talking about the necessity of having a character like that, because that character maintained the balance on the show. You see, they had, Michael knew that there had to be some kind of disturbance within the community. Not all the time, but from time to time, just to keep things realistic and balanced. You see what I mean? So I found out recently that she passed away. And her husband, who played her husband on the show, passed away. And Harvey, I believe that's his name. The character who played Harvey, forgive me, I'm not on point right now. Let me see if I can look it up real quick. But Jonathan Harvey. I think that's his last name, Jonathan Harvey. Forgive me if I'm mispronouncing his name. But Jonathan, that guy, that character, I found out he passed away. And so many folks from the show passed away. I just found out that Reverend Alden, before I started making this video, I found out that he passed away. I'm hoping that they all passed away with Christ. I truly hope so. Because, like I said, Christ, he was all over this show. He was. I love this show so much. It has brought me to tears. And speaking of tears, I know I said that I wasn't going to dive into one particular episode. I'd rather just wait until I make separate videos about other episodes. But this I have to leave you guys with. After the 9th season of Little House, I discovered on YouTube that they made individual movies. Michael Landon made separate films apart from the seasons. And one of them particularly moved me to tears. I never cried like this ever in my life. And the name of that individual film is called The Last Farewell. The Last Farewell, which is based upon the very last episode of Little House, which was basically a long movie. And I heard little bits and pieces about this film from interviews like Laura, Melissa Gilbert, who talked about it. She said that the last episode of Little House, the very last episode, Michael Landon decided to just blow up the town, destroy the town. So I was so fascinated by that. I was doing my best to locate this episode, and I seriously thought that when I watched the first 9 seasons for the first time, I thought that the last episode of season 9 was The Last Farewell, but it wasn't. So I was like baffled. I was like, what's going on? Until later on, I found out that Amazon has that episode. And when I found out about that, I decided to purchase that episode immediately. And at the time, I was still drinking. And I told my wife, I said, listen, I'm going to watch this episode, and I know that this is going to move me to tears. And she understood that. So I closed the door, turned off the lights, and I watched this episode. For those of you who haven't seen it, it's about this guy who legally took over the town of Walnut Grove, to make a long story short. And the folks in the town wasn't having it. So they rebelled against him. You know, there was one scene that this character, the guy who went to town to tell the people that I own the town now, I own your properties. The rest of the folks, the residents of Walnut Grove in this scene appeared in front of the church, right, with their rifles. And I saw the son of Harriet's son. I forgot his name right now. His name escapes me. But when I saw him with the shotgun in his hand, or rifle in his hand, I said, look at him. Oh, Willie Olsen. When I saw Willie Olsen with the shotty, I said, oh yes, this is on right now. I was like so excited. I was like, yo, this is happening. But the Reverend was there, and the Reverend realized that he can't go toe to toe with the U.S. Army, because the guy who he's the villain in the episode, when he came to Walnut Grove to tell the people that this is my town now, he came with the United States Army. And the United States Army, you know, they got on their knees, you know, and they pointed their rifles at the residents of Walnut Grove. And then Reverend Alden told his people, listen, we cannot go against the United States Army, you know. So later on, I love that episode. Ultimately, not Charles Ingalls, but this other character in the show said in a town hall meeting that I have a wagon filled with dynamite, and the best way to get back at these people, at that guy who claims that he has the right to our properties, is to just simply blow up this town. And that's what they did. They literally, on the show, blew up each and every building from the town. They blew up the church, they blew up Hanson's Mill, and they blew up Harriet, and I forgot her husband's name. They blew up their property. And what's so interesting is that after they blew up all of those things, right, One of the things that was still standing was Hanson's sign. If you are a fan of this show, you know that at the entrance of the town it says Walnut Grove, founded by Hanson, 18 whatever year, you know. And when the villain of the town came, the residents said, hey, listen, you have the right to this town, but we also have the right to do whatever we want to do to this town. And you cannot hold that against us. And the guy from the United States Army said, hey, they're right. Throughout that whole episode, I cried like never before. I cried like a little child. Because I was also under the influence too, so that amplified it. And, one scene that just crossed my mind. Let me just rewind this scene a little bit. When that character, the villain of that episode, went to Laura's house to let Laura and her husband know that we're taking over your place. Laura's husband came out with the gun, with his rifle, but his people, the villain and his crew, managed to beat him down. They didn't realize that Carolyn, Charles' wife, was also in the house, and when she noticed what was happening outside, she came out with her rifle and she pointed the rifle at them and said, let them go. When I saw that part, and I'm getting some little chills right now, I was like, yo, this is so awesome. This is so awesome. That show really felt to me like as if I was watching a Western movie. Fantastic episode. Fantastic. It's over 22 minutes. Let me wrap up this video by saying I love Little House on the Prairie. It's a part of me. Just like my family's a part of me. Of course, the Lord Jesus Christ is sitting on the throne in my life. And below him, of course, because Christ has to be first above all things. Little House is right there on the side in my heart. And if you haven't watched this show, if you are searching for something to watch right now during this awful time in America in 2020 with the coronavirus, with the anarchy, with all the bad things that are happening, with the race wars and all of this stuff, and many other things, with mental illnesses that are happening right now, people who are tremendously suffering right now. If you are looking for a way to escape from the current realities of your life, watch Little House on the Prairie. Watch it with all your heart. And I believe that you will begin to experience, feel the way I felt every time I watched that show, which is my favorite show of all time. This is the Preacher Man signing out. May the Lord Yeshua Mashiach bless you all and your loved ones. And in Yeshua's holy name, I say, Amen. Peace.